Hi everyone and welcome back. This is part two. We'll try to make this stand alone as much as we can as well. I'm with Gene Mancebo, General Manager for the Amador Water Agency. Gene, we were talking about the CFD and the GSL. We're trying to keep them separated a little bit. You said they can be talked about separately. We were talking about the CFD, and basically I'm getting the idea. First of all, there's I believe 5 systems.
4 water systems.
4 water systems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's 4 water systems. They were kind of joined to the Amador Water Agency. The Amador Water Agency is now, running them overall.
Correct.
There's common things, costs to all of the systems.
Right.
Those things are now going to be shared equitably or equally for each person, like the cost of the billing, the cost of name some of the costs.
Treatment plant operations and operation and maintenance of facilities. So all of those things, pretty much everything that we do that is very common, sharing of chemicals, equipment, personnel.
Okay. Now, if you weren't looking at adding more people to that, and as a pun, to dilute the costs, all the people would be paying the same amounts for that part, right?
And that's the idea behind our agency-wide.
Now, different systems have unique costs because of their uniqueness and the different loans for the different equipment. I imagine it's loans. What else would it be that causes differences in a rate structure that a person's going to be paying in?
Right. For our agency-wide water, rate structure, it is primarily just the debt service. The one other component is we have an extraordinarily high electrical cost in the upcountry system. That's the other item, but mainly it's debt service. Any loans that are out there for the systems are kept unique and separate to those systems.
Okay, now we might get in. So it seems like the devil in the details is in, what is it, trying to describe what the uniquenesses are in the system?
Well, I mean, I look at it just the other way around. It's the commonalities in the system.
Okay.
Because the systems are, everybody has water. I mean, we have to read everyone's meter. We have to treat the water. We have chemicals. We have power. We have to send out bills. Those are things that are really the same. So the idea behind this is 2 things. One is to try to streamline our costs, remove duplication, and that really to have a fair rate structure with the lowest possible rates possible. And really what that means is that you shouldn't pay more for water just because you live in Pioneer versus living in Ione. If we provide the same level of service, you should pay the same amount. And that's what this rate structure is about, and making sure that everyone's paying the lowest possible. And only those things that are really unique are items that are unique to that system. And like I said, the debt service are things that are carried with that individual system.
Okay, so that seems to make sense. Then the other part that you would say is, in order to make those costs even less, people that are planning on joining in the future, if they want to be in, and it's voluntary, then they can pay the costs that they would have to pay to get into the system.
Absolutely correct. But in our particular case, we have a community facilities district, the CFD, for the Amador water system. That's just one of those 4 systems. And so the money that these future customers pay in advance helps to reduce that debt payment. And so for that system, those customers, the existing customers, have less of a burden.
Okay, so those customers are joining in to help pay the debt service.
Correct.
To the unique systems.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's that.
And that's how that, right. And then in the gravity supply line,
Okay, let's not go there yet.
Okay.
All right, so just for that, and so we won't go to the gravity supply line. And it seems that like last week, 2 weeks ago, Jackson, made some statements came out of Jackson, and also from, this group called the Watchdog, Ratepayer Protection Alliance, that Jackson somehow is paying for debt service for Plymouth. How do you explain that?
Well, first of all, it's all the same system, and anytime we can increase the number of customers, everybody benefits. So as we share the cost, the more customers that are in the same system, the more we can spread that cost out.
Okay, I was hoping you would say something more like, for me, because I could understand it better, would be like, we built there's a pipeline that goes to Plymouth, and that pipeline that we put in helps some of these different, I don't imagine it helped anybody in the upcountry.
No.
Okay.
No.
So who did it help?
Well, I mean, it helps the Amador water system as a whole. And so, one, yes, it's a pipeline that goes out to Plymouth. It's intersected into different places along the Amador water system. But as the city of Plymouth, is starting to take water service now for a little better than a year, they are helping to pay for debt service of things that the city of Jackson would normally, say, shoulder, as well as all of the Amador water system customers. So the city of Plymouth is helping by adding into the system to reduce the overall cost for all customers by having them participate in this in the overall Amador water system.
Okay, other than Plymouth getting more water, which allowed more money to come into the system, is there a physical help that Jackson received from that pipeline? If you understand what I mean,
Sure.
did that pipeline itself and the cost of that pipeline itself specifically help Jackson?
It's a financial help. It's a financial help in that they're helping to pay debts that would otherwise have to be borne by just the Amador water system customers, including the city of Jackson. So their financial help has helped to reduce the burden on all the Amador water system customers as well as the city of Jackson. And so, it's just part of it being a part of the same system. We don't like to start breaking the system up looking at one street person at the beginning of the street versus the person at the end of the street. Should they have two different rates between the two? It's kind of one of those things where the more people we include in the system, the more we can reduce the cost.
Okay, so in a way, I guess you're opening this to me to be a perceived benefit as opposed to, Jackson being the end of the line, say, to where they would have got the water.
Right. I mean, the net benefit it ends up being if you took, look at it this way, if we took the city of Plymouth out of the picture and they weren't being provided water service, then the city of Jackson would end up having to pay more money. So again, having more people help to diffuse the cost. We all share in the benefit. Okay,
now Plymouth, don't they have direct costs for this the pipeline project that went there? Is there a part that Plymouth has as a debt service for this?
Yes, the city of Plymouth actually picks up, a percentage of the overall pipeline cost directly. There was some grant money involved, but the balance of the loan was kind of determined as how it benefited kind of the Amador water system as a whole and things that were very unique in benefiting to the city of Plymouth.
So Plymouth, with their needs to get the water,
right,
applied for grants and got grants that helped extend the pipeline to go to Plymouth.
Right.
And I guess the water agency maintains that helps all of the people in the water system because it added more customers to the customer base.
Correct.
And then what needs to be paid back in that then should be shared by all of the customers?
Right. I mean, we identify...
Does Plymouth maintain a specific, debt service for a major part or a small part of the pipeline itself?
Yeah, I mean, we did look at the pipeline in segments, and so the segment that's closest to the city of Plymouth really we don't see that benefiting the rest of the Amador water system as a whole.
Okay.
So it is a portion that's paid uniquely by the city of Plymouth, but then there's other portions along the way that benefit the Amador water system kind of as a whole, and that's how we came up with this share between the city of Plymouth and the Amador water system as a whole.
Okay, so it benefits, I guess we could maybe, can we start, your way of looking at it benefit everybody.
Yes.
Okay, but surely, did it travel through, where did the pipeline go down, through 88?
Well, the pipeline starts at the Tanner Water Treatment Plant on Ridge Road, and then it goes down through Sutter Creek area and makes its way towards Amador City and then on out.
Right. So it went basically at 49 corridor and helped the capacity in those different cities there.
It does provide some benefit through those systems as well.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Have you been to Sutter Creek and Amador City, or do they see it as well? Maybe I shouldn't be asking you this, but do they see that as in terms of they're paying for Plymouth's water or their pipeline?
Well, I mean, to answer the question,
I guess I'm saying, do they see it as beneficial to all, so therefore we all opt into this?
Well, we are in the process of kind of an outreach, and we are trying to talk to different customer classes as well as our large customers. As we've already talked to the City of Jackson, we'll be out there talking to more of our customer base, and certainly we want to share with them how this benefits all of our customers. Kind of the same story that we shared with the City of Jackson.
Okay, so you're in an education process to try to get people to see the way the agency would like them to look at it, that this is beneficial to all, and it's done fairly, and that there are differences in rate structure, so that Plymouth is paying more for the pipeline overall than Jackson would be. I don't know how, you got to slice and dice if you have to be an accountant and all that stuff to get it there, but I guess, philosophically speaking, or in a concept, is that right?
I mean, I think that's correct. I mean, there's portions of the pipeline that are being shared.
Well, I don't know how much time we have, but how did Bob Reed, 1 minute, how did Bob Reed basically come up with the shares or the differences?
I mean, he looked at those debt services for each of the different systems. He analyzed those and then placed those in a spreadsheet. The issue of the Plymouth pipeline specifically was the focus of another study that was done, and so Bob Reed just took that portion that's shared by the Amador water system to be shared by all its customers, and took a lot of different components into consideration. In the case of the City of Jackson, they operate and maintain the distribution system, the fire hydrants, the meters, and how those components differ from the treatment and the source of water. Those are all taken into consideration with Bob's study.
Okay, Gene, I think you've shed some light on it. You've answered some questions for me. Thank you very much.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Thanks for listening to News in Depth or watching News in Depth today, and we'll see you again next time.
You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN.